Welcome back to the Piping Pastor. Once again, we're up in the 80s here in El Paso, so back in the short sleeves, no smoking jacket today. My little smoking lounge here stays fairly temperate, but on these days, it gets a little warm even in here. But it's better than sitting outside in the direct sun, I'll tell you that for sure. And today I'm smoking my little Admiral pipe. And I mentioned this last time that I had to give it a good clean, and I did. I got a good clean on it, so the grain stands out a bit more, but the light here is not really great for that. But you can at least see how there's the variations on it. Oops. Um, and the grain stands out a bit more in person, but you can't really tell. Although this pipe's over 100 years old. It was well loved when I got it. So it's got a lot of age, a lot of darkness on it. So it's never going to be super bright, like one of those brand new pipes from from Simon. Or Phil or any of the other manufacturers out there, right? When they put those new pipes out there and they're all buffed and shiny and the grain stands out and it's just sparkling. Probably never going to get back to that. But that's okay. I don't really know much about this manufacturer. I tried finding out, but it's one of the plethora of pipe manufacturers from 100 years ago or so. There's just not a lot of information on them after they went out of business. I had to have a new stem made for it because the stem was messed up. Boswell's actually in Pennsylvania made this stem and fitted it, and it smokes really good. It smokes really well. It smokes well. Correct my grammar on that. But the most I could find out about it was that Admiral Pipes stopped making pipes in 1920. So I know it's at least 100 years old. And in this 100-year-old pipe, I'm smoking some King's Highway from Country Squire. It's a Virginia Kentucky blend, and I just love it. It's a great blend. Both this and Georgia's Dragon, which is the Virginia Burley blend. If you kind of like the or want to try like Burleys and Dark Fire Kentucky, but it might be a bit harsh or a bit strong for you initially, this is a good way to get into them because you have all the flavor and the strength and the punchiness of the Kentucky and the Burley, but the sweetness of the Virginia stay in mellows it out very nicely. And the way they blend it, they don't fight. They meld together. It's amazing tobacco. Big fan of the Country Squire blends. And having that little iced coffee. It's 80 degrees outside, so the iced coffee pitcher came out of storage. Actually, I got this out last week. And started brewing some iced coffee. Still do the hot coffee in the morning, but in the afternoon, especially if you're sitting outside, iced coffee is the way to go. And a cold brew pitcher is a good investment if you live in a hot climate. Or even a place that has hot summers. I'm a Midwestern guy myself originally. Summers in Indiana get hot and muggy, much like they do in the South. Not quite as muggy and hot as South Carolina, Mississippi, and so forth, but they get up there. So, good place to have a pitcher of cold brew coffee around. Well, this will be a last video again for a couple weeks. A lot of back-to-back travel right now. A lot of stuff going on. So I'll be leaving again this week, and I think I'm only gone for a couple weeks this time. That's the plan anyway. Sometimes plans change, but as of right now, looking at about 2 weeks. So this will be the last one for a couple weeks. But I got this one out to share with you all today. This is a wonderful little book. it's a collection of poems by a guy named J.G. Holland, and this one is actually inscribed by the author. Um, this one found this in a bookstore in Maryland, I think. Um, Published in 1869, and he dedicated this entire book of poems to his wife, which I thought was sweet. And then um, it's he dedicated it to I can't see who, but it was in 1877 is when he autographed and inscribed this. So I was really happy to find this copy. It's got some damage on it, as a lot of used books will do, but much like the pipe, it still reads just fine, and it's a beautiful example of old school binding, and um, I just love the fact that it's inscribed by the author. It kind of has a personal touch. But this poem is called Complaint. River, sparkling river, I have fault to find with thee. River, thou dost never give a word of peace to me. Dimpling to each touch of sunshine, wimpling to each air that blows, thou dost make no sweet reply to my sighing or repose. Flowers of mount and meadow, I have fault to find with you. So the breezes cross and toss you, so your cups are filled with dew. Matters not, though sighs give motion to the ocean of your breath. Matters not, though you are filling with chilling drops of death. Birds of song and beauty, lo, I charge you all with blame. Though all hapless passions thrill and fill me, you are still the same. I can borrow for my sorrow nothing that avails, from your lonely note that only speaks of joy that never fails. O indifference of nature to the fact of human pain, every grief that seeks relief entreats at her in vain. And it goes on for a bit further. But I thought this one was an interesting depiction of nature if you view nature simply as a naturalist. If you view nature simply as a naturalist, as a physicalist, as someone who has no inkling of spiritual matters or God's presence at all, then that can certainly be the case. Those experiences where the observer of nature is in pain or in sadness or loneliness, and rather than being comforted by nature, they see nature as being indifferent. Like, it doesn't matter how sad I am, the birds still sing the same cheery notes. Doesn't matter how lonely and melancholy I am, the river gives me no replies. The flowers are still just as beautiful. None of this cares. None of this is in any way affected by my emotional state. As Christians, we understand that God is pervasive in creation, right? Omnipresent. God is in and through all creation. Everything flows from the Creator. I've talked about that before, right? So when we go into nature, if we understand it as not only a representation of God, not like a picture of God, but as God's presence and creative energies flowing in and through those things, then we can have a comforting interaction with nature. Then we can go into the woods feeling lonely and depressed and sad and miserable, and be amongst the trees and feel the spiritual connection we have with God through that natural presence, the love that God has for us through God's creation. God didn't have to make the world beautiful. How much oxygen does a flower produce, right? So, does the fact that a tree is gorgeous make any difference whatsoever to the fact of its function in nature, right? It could be ugly and hideous, and the world could be gray. It could be without color. But all this creative energy of God in the world is a demonstration of who God is, which is a God of love and a God of creation and a God who desires an interactive relationship. So if you go into the woods as an atheist, you might be able to appreciate nature, but you're not going to have that kind of an emotional connection. You're not going to have that kind of a real deep stirring unless you really believe that there is some kind of spiritual presence there as well. If you view everything as just mechanics, like we're just meat puppets walking around, and that consciousness is just some kind of emergent property of neurons firing, then yeah, when you walk through nature and you're sad, that's the kind of experience you're going to have. But if you go through nature, if you sit in a field of flowers, or if you go hiking on a mountain, or you spend time in the desert and see the sunrise in the desert, and you feel something that comforts you or elates you, maybe you're not as atheistic as you think. Maybe you are experiencing God, you're just not putting a name to it. Because our interaction with nature is our interaction with God. So I will leave you with that. Next time, maybe go take a hike in the woods or climb a mountain. And instead of just seeing things as rocks and trees, thinking about the spiritual connection that you can have and feel and interact with when you're in those kind of environments. And then the river won't seem indifferent to your suffering. The river will be joining with you in your suffering. Think about that. Empathetic connection with nature. Well, as I said, that's it for this time for a couple weeks. I also want to mention this, just a random tagline, but I got Invisaligns. I mentioned about getting braces before, and I was talking, chatting back and forth earlier with another friend of ours on the YTPC who had recently gotten braces, and he was like, invest in softy bits because your teeth are going to hurt. And Invisaligns are kind of uncomfortable, but the good news is you can pop them in and out. So when I go out to smoke my pipe, I got to pop them out. So didn't have to invest in softy bits. So if any of you are thinking about that, getting your teeth straightened, and it's never too late, um, I highly suggest Invisaligns. And I don't have any stock in that company. I'm just saying that as a personal testimonial. So, in any case, that's it. I hope you have a lovely week. As always, happy reading.